Chapter 3. The sun was just peeking over the neighbor's frost-coated roof when Mom joined me on my third cup of coffee. She wore that same pink terry cloth robe she had had since before I left. New slippers, same brand as always, but new. That was Mom. Once she found something she liked, she kept it. Could explain why she and Dad were going at it on their 34th year. Not that they didn't have their moments. Both were as stubborn as mules. But their parents had been farmers, and their parents before them. So their no-nonsense outlook, "You can't fool the earth, so don't try to fool me," always won out. They made a commitment, and despite the fights and threats, once or twice a flying utensil, they were sticking together no matter what. Which explains her response when I told her my plan. "You're not serious," she said. "Sure, why not?" I tried sounding like it was no big deal. We'd go someplace out of the way, have a little civil ceremony, come back and set up house. Tongues will wag for a while, but eventually no one will even... After all she's done? The way she's treated you? I took a sip of coffee. And the embarrassment. Not just to you. The jokes they're telling down at the mill? Your father, he didn't say much, but I heard from some of the others. She hesitated. What, Mom? What did you hear? One of the younger guys, you know how they're always shooting their mouths off. What'd he say? Some kid made a crack to your father. I'm not exactly sure what, but, well, your father and him, they kind of got into it. What, Dad? They put him on a week's leave without pay. What? She glanced down at her coffee, embarrassed, but you could also hear a little of that working-class pride. Guess he busted the kid's nose up pretty bad. I couldn't believe my ears. Dad? She looked out the window. Of course, old man McDermott, he just keeps on preaching like nothing's happened. All holier than thou. I tell you, I never did like that family, putting on airs and acting like... Mom, the McDermotts don't put on airs. What do you call it when he stands around in front of that pulpit every Sunday telling people that they're not good enough, that they have to be all holy and perfect? Well, he's always been right by me. A little overprotective of his daughter, but he's a good guy. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Meaning? The apple never falls far from the tree. I stared at her. Don't look at me that way. Besides, you know what they say about preachers' kids. Mom, it's Mary McDermott. She stared back out the window, doing her best to bite her tongue, but her feelings were clear. Her silence, judge, jury, and verdict. And she was right. So why was I defending Mary? Don't get me wrong, last night's guest appearance with all its special effects definitely made an impression, but I was still mad, big time, and humiliated, and betrayed, and... oh, the list goes on. But I knew her. I knew Mary McDermott. At least I thought I did. She was the girl I teased throughout elementary school. In middle school, she was the one I always made a mental note of if she was nearby. And in high school, she was the one I became best friends with. We were always there for each other. When she couldn't wrap her head around chemistry or lost the election for student body president, I was there. And when I got hospitalized with a minor concussion or when Cindy Prescott dumped me and I had no one to ask to homecoming, well, she was there. Of course, she never told me how many guys she turned down waiting for me to ask, but she was there. That was Mary McDermott. Sensitive, thoughtful, and pregnant with somebody else's kid. My gut tightened, my thoughts more than a little scrambled. Mom cleared her throat. Want some breakfast? Oh, no, not if it's a trouble. Nonsense. Your father's getting up in a few minutes anyway, so... She was interrupted by the doorbell. We traded looks. I started to get up to answer it. Sit, she said. Finish your coffee. She rose and ambled out of the kitchen. My mind went back to Mary McDermott, the girl who always passed on seeing raunchy movies, the looker who knew how to dress but never used it to show off her body, everybody's friend, but who never joined in the drinking or drugs or even bad language. And she couldn't wait a year, 11 months? This was the down-to-earth beauty I wouldn't dream of making moves on. Oh, I dream, but I wouldn't dare. And she does it with another guy? My jaw clenched. Whoever it was, I'd find him. I swear to God, I'd find him at... What is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. The words made no sense. And if they're supposed to make things easier, forget it. Now, seriously, did she have any idea how many women I could have had, huh? Like Leroy said, it's a new world out there. And I'm a good-looking guy. There were opportunities, lots of them. But I turned them down. Why? Because I loved her. I had my chances, but I honored her. Honor, a word she'd obviously forgotten. Joey, can you come here for a minute? I scooted back my chair and wandered into the living room, my mind still racing. And what does she do? She can't wait to hop into the sack. With who? Johnson? Oh, maybe. Maybe some other sweet-talking guy, or guys, like Leroy says, they were waiting in line. And me? I'm the guy with pie all over his face. The guy whose old man gets into a fight. I slowed to a stop. There in the doorway, silhouetted by the morning light, stood Pastor McDermott, balding, early 50s, in an overcoat and suit, always a suit. And beside him, Mary. She was bundled up in a blue ski jacket with white scarf and mittens. The sun flared behind her, making her hair glow. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. She never looked up, just kept staring down at her mittens. I had no idea what to say. Her dad saved me the trouble. Joseph? I nodded. The muscles in my jaw were getting a workout, but I didn't answer. I didn't trust my voice. My nails dug into my palms, but I didn't speak, only stare at her. Slender, 5'4", and even more breathtaking than I remembered. I'd waited 11 months for this moment, thought of it every day, dreamed of it every night, and now I couldn't speak. After what seemed forever, she raised her slate blue eyes. They were red and swollen. My throat tightened. Do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife. I took a slow, steady breath. Her eyes faltered, then looked back down. I caught the reflection of a tear tracking down her cheek. Mom cleared her throat. Would you like to come in? McDermott looked to his daughter. She gave no answer. What is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. I scowled at the words, but they kept coming. Take Mary home, I swallowed, as your wife. I took another breath. My own eyes burned with moisture, but I couldn't look away. And then, having minds of their own, I felt my fists unclench, my palms turning toward her. Not my arms, they still hung frozen, just my hands. I opened my mouth, words still wouldn't come. They didn't have to. She saw what was going on, could read my mind as she always does. And she raced to me. Before I could stop myself, I was holding her. I felt her hot tears against my neck, her body trembling. Was I still angry? Oh, yes, 1,000 times over, but even as I held her, tears spilled onto my own face, running down, mixing with hers. Finally, I forced the word from my clogged throat. It came, but barely a whisper. Mary. I pulled her closer. buried my face into her hair. My Mary.